Hello and welcome to the Schooner Pod. And folks, we were planning on just talking about the Alamo Bowl, but frankly, this has been an insane day in what has been an insane offseason so far. So, to start out, if you can't tell by the thumbnail, Caleb Williams is in the transfer portal. Now, not only that, we were set and ready to go and talk about Caleb, then it gets flipped again. With the shocking commitment of Dillon Gabriel, who is currently enrolled at UCLA, last seen playing football at UCF, and is a great, connection to Jeff Lebby. So, some shocking developments. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me, we got Jameson, we got Ty, as usual. And Jameson, I don't even know where to start. First reaction, I guess, to the Caleb portal. First reaction to Dillon Gabriel, as a Sooner. So let's just start with the biggest news. Caleb to the portal, looking like he's gone. Your thoughts on the situation as a whole?
Yeah, when I first saw him hit the portal, I said, okay, that's fine. I'm not worried. A lot of people are like, oh, hit the portal means they're gone. But we all knew Caleb Williams is going to discuss if he needs to stay at OU or not. And he was going to hear things from other colleges. So he did it the right way by putting himself in the portal so he could talk to these other colleges. An Oregon, a USC, a Miami. We'll talk a lot about Miami. Like, what? But okay. And it would make sense for him to get in the portal. But now Dillon Gabriel committing, there must have been some type of meeting today. OU guaranteed, Caleb guaranteed that OU would get the last meeting before he made his decision. There had to be some kind of, hey, Caleb, we're going to want to hear something pretty soon because we need to get the tires kicking. And he probably didn't give good vibes to Lebby to where Lebby said, screw it, pull the trigger on plan B.
And, let's also make it clear, I don't think this 100% means that Caleb is not coming back. I think it is a very strong sign that he probably won't. So I wouldn't have a whole bunch of hope about it, but it doesn't rule it out entirely. Ty, your reaction to the news?
Yeah, for sure. It certainly seems to me like now that we've seen the things that have unfolded, like we talked about in the past couple of hours, the announcement by Caleb Williams and then the announcement by Dillon Gabriel to come to OU. It certainly almost seems to me like maybe this is a discussion that has been occurring, maybe since Riley left, and this is sort of the resolution to it. And I would not find it hard to believe maybe if Williams had been planning on leaving the entire time, and this is just sort of, we're going to do this the right way and take the steps to figure out where we're going. So obviously too soon to really speculate, but too soon to say for certain, but to speculate, I do have to agree that Caleb Williams is most probably no longer going to be playing at OU.
Yeah, I don't know if I can kind of agree with this, Caleb Williams still might come back thing. What would make a guy, decommit from an enrollment at UCLA and come to OU there's a chance that a quarterback comes back with 2 years before he goes to the NFL draft, whenever Gabriel has already played 3 seasons? This is not a guy that is a redshirt freshman. He coming in with 4 years of eligibility. No, this is a guy who's been around college football for a long time. He's not going to come to a school that has a chance where he would sit on the bench. So there had to be some inclination that Lebby gave to Dillon Gabriel, a guy that he already was close with in his past, UCF, who knows his system, say, hey, I think you've got the spot. He would not tell Gabriel to come if he knows that the spot wouldn't have been there for him.
Well, I think the biggest, kind of clue, if there would be, is Gabriel saying, in his tweet announcing that he committed to OU, they say life's a gamble like rolling the dice, dime time. Ignore the dime time part, but he's outright saying that it is a gamble. And that, to me, makes it feel like that maybe there are introductory conversations with Lebby where he's like, look, it might not work out with Caleb Williams. Would you have any interest in coming to Oklahoma and, flipping over? And maybe he prematurely was like, no, screw it. I'm going to go try there. Just take this risk and try to beat out Caleb Williams, which, frankly, I don't do. Dillon Gabriel is not a better quarterback than Caleb Williams. That is just kind of very solid. But the gamble thing has kind of made me think, like, maybe this isn't as solid as you would think. Just the headline, Dillon Gabriel commits to Oklahoma.
For sure. Yeah, and I don't think we had sort of a bit of a discussion prior to this, and obviously there's going to be much more info that comes out, but you can be rather pedantic with the word commitment. Does it necessarily entail a mutual agreement with the school, or like you said, was there just a discussion and he said, you know what, I'm going to go for it. I'm reading the tea leaves here and reading the winds and seeing that this is going to happen, let me jump on this beforehand. Real quick before I let Jameson take it, I do want to say that it is it's very interesting, regardless of how this plays out, that we had someone. I don't necessarily. I agree with Bobby. I don't think Dillon Gabriel is a better quarterback than Caleb Williams, but it shows the caliber of OU and of the oncoming system that we had a commit or decommitment potentially from our starting quarterback, and we had a very good replacement option immediately step in, regardless of the details of that. So that will be interesting to play out. And just like we heard Stoops say in the coaching reference, or in the coaching hire situation, we have the best and the brightest looking to come to OU within college football.
Yeah, I think Dillon Gabriel, we would be remiss to say, like, oh, this guy isn't any good. This guy's very good. He was definitely the number one option on the transfer market for quarterback. And he was a guy that before going to UCLA, Spencer Rattler, I'm assuming some experts picked him to go to UCLA, and Dillon Gabriel took his spot. So obviously people think highly about him on the transfer market over a guy like Spencer Rattler. But secondly, he knows Levy's system. So what a greater start to, a kind of a tumultuous time in Oklahoma where there's so many moving pieces, to bring in at least one guy, the head, the quarterback, the boss on the offense that already knows the system. So this is best case scenario for a non-Caleb Williams quarterback, because Caleb Williams is a once in a, decade, I guess, quarterback, and that comes through college football, the way we've seen how he played as a true freshman.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to knock Dillon Gabriel or say that he's, not on that caliber. Or sorry to say he's not any good. I just, like you said, I don't think he's a generational guy, which, you don't have to be. He has to be a guy who comes in, steadies the ship, and, can operate an offense better than a guy like Ralph Rucker. And frankly, to flip a guy like this late in the portal season is kind of remarkable. And how should I put this? Well, the best case scenario would be Caleb coming back, no hullabaloo, no portal mess, or this is probably the second best of the other bad situations where you have to take another guy who isn't a Dillon Gabriel or isn't a Caleb Williams, or trying to start a Nick Evers or Ralph Rucker. So, really, this is not awful as far as things go. And OU had to make this call. I think they had to make this call early, because you don't want to be you don't want to be Clay Bennett and the rest of the ownership sitting in a tiny hotel room in the Hamptons, eating TGI Fridays after Kevin Durant dumped you, and you don't have any other options. You have to strike while the iron is hot. Caleb took a risk by hopping into the portal. OU was left unguarded, so you have to do something there, and that's just how it is. It works both ways.
Mm-hmm. And you can't think that OU doesn't have extreme sources at other programs, people, almost moles, that can kind of figure out what's the sniffing situation and what people think at USC, what people think at Oregon, what people think at Miami, Caleb Williams spots that he's looking at, to think how optimistic are they in getting them? And if they're getting optimistic, some of the sources, and then, the meeting with Caleb, he didn't give them the answers and the body language that they wanted, they made a non-risk in picking Dillon Gabriel. Like you said, he was already enrolled, and you had to make moves here pretty soon. And you could put all your chips on the table and hope for Caleb Williams. But, if he's quacking like a duck and, walking like a duck that he's going to leave, you're going to treat him like a duck and say, he's gone.
For sure. Yeah.
I don't know anything about Oregon. I was just saying duck.
I think that Caleb Williams is a competitive guy. And I do want to present this, not as a hedge, but as just to present sort of every angle. There is a potential that, Caleb Williams does remain at OU. I think with the Gabriel announcement, it is less. Not because I think that Caleb Williams is afraid of Gabriel, but I think that there's a lot more discussions behind closed doors than are appearing on, the the very refined statements that are read over by lawyers and then released on Twitter. So it is it's still possible that, maybe Dillon Gabriel doesn't have a firm agreement with OU, and he's pulling sort of a Baker Mayfield and just walking on essentially or declaring his commitment because he saw some interest. And, there's a potential that Caleb Williams was going to leave and maybe wants to compete for it now, or who knows? You never know what is going to happen. So don't buy in too much to very public, very cookie cutter generic statements released. Obviously there's a lot of indicators there, but there's a whole lot more occurring that's not making it to the media.
Yeah, for sure. And there's just a lot behind the scenes. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg of a lot of craziness, I'm sure, behind the scenes, for sure. But Jameson, we've talked a lot about the decision of Gabriel to come here, but what type of quarterback is Oklahoma getting here? What's his style? And what can you see out of this offense potentially?
Dude, there's a lot for me to still watch because, to be honest, I heard Dillon Gabriel, it makes sense as a replacement, but I was all in on Caleb Williams, really, thinking that he was going to come back. I felt pretty decent, to tell you the truth. And now this comes, and I am got caught, pooping on the toilet right now, and I don't know. All I do is I remember whenever it was his days at UCF, it seems like he's a quite dynamic quarterback, obviously a lefty, and kind of do a lot across the field, and that's something that Lebby wants. He wants a guy that can do everything. You saw that with Matt Corral this year. Matt Corral, aside from getting a high ankle sprain in the game, he can do everything on the field. He can run, he can make plays on his own, he can pass the ball really well. So he's not some kind of stationary guy, but he's not, only an athlete.
And I will say, just to, taking a quick glance at, his stats here, he's a rusher in the sense that he can scramble. His career high for rushing yards in a season is 169. So he's not a Caleb Williams, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, running 60, 50 yards, taking things to the house. But he's definitely not, wouldn't say a flat-footed guy. Definitely through the air is pretty remarkable. His years in 2020 and 2019 were very good, both 3,000-yard passing seasons. So there's a lot there to like. But that being said, it is a difference. It is not an upgrade. It's probably a slight downgrade, but over the alternative, very good, I would say. So let's talk about Caleb, and potentially this was kind of going to be the meat of this when we thought this is the only thing we had to talk about. Where is he going to go? What are these type of programs that he could see as an upgrade for himself? He mentioned in his, kind of goodbye letter that he's looking for, or not goodbye, but, I'm going to the portal letter, where he said he was going to look at several other options to help his NFL, draft stock. There was some talk about, probably NIL as well. And what are a couple programs that he could really thrive at, I guess, that could be better than OU?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I already hit those names from what, a lot of the message boards are talking about. And I kind of want to hear, especially Ty's thoughts, because I'll be kind of here to laugh a little bit about his Miami thought. But, Miami's the name that got thrown out. And we heard from correspondent Bowden Blake that he heard there's some chirps that Joe Brady might be offensive coordinator there Still a lot to happen there, but that's, Caleb Williams coming out of high school said, I want to play for 2 quarterback coaches. And it's either going to be Joe Brady or Lincoln Riley. And when Joe Brady left for the pros, there's only one available option. And now USC being a second option, I know that Caleb Williams is a very, loyal person, has great values about him. And that Lincoln Riley move, I'm sure pissed him off. And him moving to USC isn't just like, I'm going to follow you wherever you go and I'm your humble servant. It's hey, you kind of left me out here high and dry and brought me to this school. And in my first year, you bounce. Like, can I really trust this dude? Like, is this the guy that I thought he was? So is USC a lock? I'm not sure. And then also Oregon, because I believe he had a connection with, Lanning. I think he likes Lanning's coaching style. Obviously, it would have been a great attraction if we were to be able to land him as a defensive coordinator here at Oklahoma, but obviously got outbid as a head coach offer at Oregon. But those are the 3 big schools other than OU, that Caleb Williams was going to look at. But like, Ty, what do you like the most out of those 3 schools that I listed? Like, what kind of gives you, good vibes from those?
You asked me.
Yeah.
So out of the options, and not just to be an OU homer, but out of the options, right? I think staying, honestly, is probably the best decision in terms of NFL draft stock and resume. From what it looks like right now, we aren't going to be moving to the SEC, at least in Caleb Williams' playing time, which is good because you get outside of the pack pretty much the easiest. Especially as a quarterback, Power 5 resume to get up in there with the defenses that we're playing. You have the name brand, which does hold some value, and obviously you have that at USC, you have that at Miami, you have that at Oregon. But I think potentially, maybe he knew he was going to leave right when Lincoln Riley left. And I think this ties into where he could potentially go, because if he knew he was going to leave the second that Lincoln Riley left, but then said, I'm going to stick with this team, I'm on this team, I'm going to play the bowl game, I'm going to ride out this entire season, season and postseason, and then I'm going to evaluate my options. The fact that occurred, I think, means he's not going to be going to USC, because it just seems like you said, such a fundamental difference in how the exits were played out. And obviously, who knows what was going on behind closed doors, but I think it's pretty fair to say that he was absolutely as blindsided as everyone else with Lincoln Riley leaving. So I don't see him, sticking his hand on the stove. Again, not that would burn him. Lincoln Riley is, great at quarterbacks. So who knows? But I think out of all those options, if it's not staying at OU, it's got to be Oregon. I know Miami has basically given their program a blank check and has a lot of stuff, but Oregon is sort of trying to come up, but they're not in the same way that Miami. Like, Miami is in full, rebuild recovery mode, trying to start from essentially ashes. They've had, 6-6 every season is kind of like their average. Oregon is a cut above that. They're playing in their conference championship regularly, and Oregon is trying to dominate their conference more, but they're almost not at OU's level, but they're trying to get to the next level. Like, they're at the level where they could win national championships, and they're trying to punch up there. So if I had to guess, my money right now would be Oregon, because it's not necessarily a lateral move. I think we're a little bit better than Oregon, as we just saw. But maybe Oregon.
Oregon would be an option. I don't know what they have really going on offense. The whole mindset of what Oregon is to you has kind of completely shifted. And then add in the fact that Bo Nix has just transferred to Oregon as well, which, again, he could beat Bo Nix for sure. But there's already an incumbent there, just as there is at USC as well. Miami seems to have a guy they like. Honestly,
still,
as a normal college, it's Caleb Williams. I mean, come on. You take Caleb Williams over anyone.
Yeah, Caleb Williams is not scared to compete. We know that. He wanted to go to OU when Brock Vandegrift was on our slate for the 2021 class. Like, he believes in himself. So the competition for him, if he were to go to a team like Oregon, is Bo Nix, and he's got experience, and that's tough. And my argue against Oregon, I think, is lowest on my list, because Caleb Williams' family and him say NFL is my dream and I want people to develop me for the NFL to the best of my ability. A 35-year-old brand new coach is a little bit not what I'm thinking, is kind of what he's looking for. Now I'm interested in Miami. I understand they've got that new freshman that did well this year that has the two names. I think it's like Van something. Have to look it up. But Caleb Williams puts him in the dirt and just leaves him out to dry if he transfers there. He gets that job. And if Joe Brady's the head is the offensive coordinator there, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Caleb Williams in a Miami jersey. But if Lincoln Riley can calm the storm and kind of say, hey, this is what happened, blah, 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 and he obviously probably has been doing that for the past couple of weeks, saying, hey, this is why I left and everything, and I really hope that I can regain your trust. And if he does regain his trust, I think Lincoln Riley can move him to USC. But Joe Brady going to Miami is very, very interesting.
Tyler Van Dyke is the guy, by the way, at Miami.
Yes.
No, it is, and I think that Caleb Lincoln connection, that is kind of the big question right now. If they can build that back together, we'll see how it happens. I don't know. That's a hard thing to really kind of rebound from, and we'll see. But I think Miami is interesting because a lot of those offensive guys, specifically Mario Cristobal, at Oregon, the flair of Oregon is now at Miami. And even though it is a rebuild, they have staff there to make it work. They also have, let's just be honest, a lot of money. And they have the beach. And that seems like a thing you could be very marketable, is being on South Beach and, playing for the U, playing for a brand like Miami. That is helpful. However, the thing is, everything he wants, I feel like, is at Oklahoma. So that's the kind of confusing thing to me. Is it seems like you can make a good argument for all of these places, these little bits and pieces from Miami, from USC, from Oregon, from really anyone. But the one place it all kind of comes together, I think, is Oklahoma, and that's it. Just I personally, I get why he wanted to go, test the waters, see his options. But I think at the end of the day, the right spot is there, and if you move on to the portal, that right spot, they're not going to sit around for you because we can't afford that. You have to make the right decision. You have to make that move. You have to pull the trigger. Or else, like I said, you're going to be Sam Presti and Clay Bennett eating cold mozzarella sticks at a TGI Fridays in the Hamptons, and nobody wants to do that.
I think we got an interesting comment in our comment section from Lindsay, and I kind of want Ty's thought on this because there's this kind of mantra going around right now with Caleb. Is he just putting himself in the portal just to see who can give him the biggest offer? Who's got who's the biggest fish that that can give him the most money? Do you think that's the case, Ty?
I think the potential is there. We're in an era of college football. Very specifically, where we just introduced above table, financial aspects for the players, and we've also just introduced, in terms of the timeline of college football, this ability to transfer schools much more freely. So I think we're at a very unique era of player empowerment, where these players are much more employees. I've argued that they haven't necessarily really been student athletes for a long time, but they are much more now, talent and employees and managed as such. And I think we're starting to see that with some people, and that is very much a possibility here. If he has a smart agent or whatever else. I'm not saying it's a purely financial situation, but there is certainly the chance that he's making a savvy business move, as any employee would if they're on a contract or able to renegotiate a contract, where they're going to say, you know what, I'm going to explore my options and look at their options, and we'll see. And I think it's interesting because it's so novel for us, for players, whereas not necessarily at OU, we're not used to this, but at many other schools, if we had a coach that was at the end of his contract or coming up on the end of his contract, and he said, you know what, I'm going to at least entertain calls from other places. I haven't made a decision yet, but I'm going to see what's out there. that's not at all uncommon. That would not be news. That would be news at OU. We've been very spoiled with sort of continuity and almost 10 years of head coaches, and that's why the Lincoln Riley situation that wasn't necessarily novel to college football burned OU fans so bad. But if you think about it from sort of the business player empowerment standpoint, there is certainly a very fair argument that Caleb Williams fully intends to remain at OU and just wants to let it be known that they're going to have to work for him because he is the talent here, and coaches are also talent as well. But there is there is that possibility out there as well that I don't think should be discounted at all, especially with how we haven't seen that yet. But we will start to see more and more as smarter players and smarter agents work their way into college football and learn these rules that have been established and everything else, that we see players that are really making savvy moves. Because right now, with how new the rules are, there's a fair argument that college players potentially are in a better situation in terms of money-making possibilities and also freedom of just choosing their careers than NFL players. Because you can't get traded as a college player, so it's fully in your hands. So there's definitely some big potential there that I'm not necessarily a money thing, but Caleb Williams is saying, what do you have to offer me?
Well, I'll say this. I think if you're upset about how this went down with the NIL and with the transfer portal being as accessible as it is, I wouldn't be mad at the player who is taking all options available and capitalizing it. I would be upset with the NCAA for having no restrictions on it whatsoever, having very little, structure in place, that, this is a thing that could just happen willy-nilly. And I'm all in favor of player empowerment. I'm all for that. I get your money, get all that. I think more structure needs to be involved where it's not just a Wild West like it is right now. Because it's just a total mess right now. And I think I'm more concerned with the structure rather than a person making the smart right move in his eyes, and just in general. If you can enter free agency at any point in time, you do that. That is why you have NBA players sign 4-year deals with 1 year guaranteed, and they can opt out, is so they have that freedom. And it's smart. They're utilizing their tactics, their talent, and leveraging it into as much freedom as possible. And if you really don't like that, then honestly, change the system. Demand more out of the NCAA. Demand more out of the structure where that can't happen. Because right now it is kind of a mess. And honestly, maybe we'll see that some of this is not good. The unlimited portaling isn't good. And I feel like, weirdly enough, the most egregious portal situation just benefited OU with Dillon Gabriel. The guy portaled to one place and then portaled back the second he had a better opportunity in the same offseason. And that seems like a little bit much. So I don't blame Caleb Williams for taking having his ability to talk to people, look at other things, especially when, he had a plan. It changed with Lincoln Riley leaving, and he wanted to, kind of redo it, which I don't blame him for. But, yeah, it's a mess. They need to figure some structure out. And, yeah, Jameson, your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I think my thing with the NIL and transfer portals, I'm all for the transfer portal and the one-time deal and all of that, but Caleb Williams was kind of in a unique experience where, NIL wasn't as big as it is now whenever he entered college. And then this year it's obviously blown up. So there's going to be a lot of recruits, a la Texas's offensive linemen that take deals to come to a certain program, which is going to be more recruits than not. And they're going to take money to come to a program. But once they hit the transfer portal, that's just money that they have, and now they can go to a new place and they can get another bag of another, signing bonus almost to another team. So I don't know what these NIL contracts are like, but I would hope for, at least to the standpoint, of like saying it's the Wild Wild West, that at least in these contracts it says like if you do end up transferring that you have to pay back, or like this new NIL deal that you land could almost treat this new, like you can buy out of your new of your old NIL contract. I think that's the best bet from it. I'm not saying like you're doomed and you're stuck if you can't buy out your contract and you shouldn't, transfer. But I think there should be something similar, at least to that. I'm sure there's something we can find in the details and make that work.
Yeah, I do want to point out real quick. It's interesting with the NIL because technically it's not a salary from the schools. There are a lot of sort of things like Texas is doing that is fully legal, and I support it. And I think OU should jump on this as well with their linemen. The sort of the $50,000 a year, I think, salary for their linemen that's just sort of laundered through to make it a sponsorship deal. But a lot of the people that are making the big money with the NIL, these are products and corporate sponsorships that aren't dependent on, where you're playing. Obviously, say you're at we'll say Joe Smith, to throw out a generic car dealership in Oklahoma, because I don't want to name the one that comes to mind, and you're sponsoring you're sponsoring a player, and say you're an Oklahoma car dealership and that player transfers to NYU. I don't think they even play football, but naturally that would go away. But when you're sponsored by Canes or Nike or McDonald's or
I love how you thought of
else.
Raising Canes first.
Yeah.
Well, Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, but those aren't, maybe you move out of that company's region, but those aren't dependent on the schools. And that's a very interesting thing because with college football, again, to compare it to the NFL or other pro sports, a lot of, a handful of people make a lot more money from sponsorships, but most pro football players are making the most money from their teams, where in college football, the ones that are making money are making it from merchandising and companies, not their teams or their schools. So that, again, ties into, and I think there will be adjustments to the rules and sort of crackdowns or whatever else as more and more, boosters continue to get burned. It's sort of the novelty of the situation. It's the Wild West, rules creep will inevitably set in. But yeah, we're certainly at a very unique time. And I don't necessarily know that there's a way with the current NIL system that you can incentivize people remaining at schools, because if I'm a sponsor, there's no such thing as, well, there is definitely such thing as bad publicity as a sponsor, but if you're talking about a guy entering the transfer portal, Caleb Williams, how many people were talking about, tweeting about viewing Caleb Williams' social media prior to today versus today, right? The views on whatever sponsored posts or whatever sponsorships he has are tremendous when he enters the transfer portal and when he gets this news going, So that is definitely something that college football has not experienced before, and we're going to continue to experience. But right now the system, I think, is going to incentivize things like this, even if it's just like the original question from Lindsay asks, is there a potential he's just doing this to see the money? This could just be a move to keep his name in the, he's one of the main stories on ESPN right now, and will be tomorrow, and will be when he announces his final decision. That's a smart business move regardless of where he's going.
I agree. I just think it's almost signed, sealed, delivered. He's gone. I am going to put, I don't think that's that even bold to say. I understand y'all are leaving the door open. I'm ready to shut the door and move on. Because I was looking more into Dillon Gabriel, because obviously I was talking about how I got caught on the pot there. Looking a little bit more into him. He has 3 years of eligibility because he only played 3 games this season. So even though he's been around college football for a long time, for 3 years, he still has 3 years of eligibility to play, which is quite nice, especially with our quarterback recruiting position losing Malachi Nelson and kind of trying to get our grounds and our identity about us moving forward with recruiting, because we have a guy essentially that has the same amount of eligibility as Caleb Williams.
I'll put it this way. I don't think I think the door is closed on Caleb, but we haven't turned his key fob off yet. He could still come in if he wants, but I think for the most part we're just like, we're ready to move on. But I think as a fan base, mentally, go ahead and move on. You should move on, because it doesn't look good. And if you've been following this saga for any amount of time, you realize that the good things usually don't happen. You might get a nice visor exchange or a fun airport greeting, but usually what you want doesn't end up happening, and you have to settle with a Dillon Gabriel. But that's okay, and you learn to live with it. You learn to move on, and you learn to look at better things, such as good coaching hires. I would say, including a couple
transition
assistants as well.
What a segue!
I know. So let's talk about it. Not the only big news today came out of the quarterbacking room. Two major hires. Let's start with the defensive line coach. Finally got announced, and good God, what a highway robbery, huh, Jameson?
Yeah, honestly, it's crazy to think that we were so in the dark about what's going on with these new coaches. But in all honesty, the ones that were the favorite and talked about, even whispered the most beforehand, came to be. Todd Bates just makes sense. This is a guy who's been around Venables. Are you guys seeing a theme here when it comes to the defensive staff? Even though Brent Venables is not our defensive coordinator, guess what? He wants his guys that does his way because he's going to have a lot of his hands on this. This guy, was the defensive tackles coach, Clemson. He's going to be co-defensive coordinator too. Like, we are trying to say, I want our defensive line coach to have a lot of power in this defense because we're about to move to the SEC. And when you go to the SEC, you get big boys. And I think this is a great move.
I agree. Go ahead, Ty. Sorry.
So I was just going to say is here's the thing, right? We look at, and I think there's going to be some people that are going to debate with me on this, but I will argue that it is a matter of the fact that these individuals were on these teams. When you look at all of the recent national championships, so let's say 10, maybe 15 years. I know that's 15 is not that recent, but it's sort of the era that we're in now when it comes to, well, maybe not 15. Well, 10 to 12 years. Go back to whatever 2009 is. I can't do mental math. It's the defensive focused teams that are winning, right? Like, I can name some Bama quarterbacks that I've met and just sort of had press because they were the quarterback at Bama, but are unremarkable guys. Trevor Lawrence is, I think, a great quarterback, maybe underdeveloped in the NFL, but not necessarily that amazing. All of the sort of national championship winning guys are – you don't have to have a star quarterback, and a good offense is important. Obviously, there's a lot of superstar receivers that were on those teams as well, but having a strong defense, especially a strong defensive line, has been really crucial. I mean, you can make a really fair argument that's what won it for Clemson. And maybe that's an OU homer take now that we have their D-line coach and their defensive coordinator. But I'm super excited for OU to be a more defensive-minded team because I think that is our future when we move on to the SEC. Because we're not going to be able to run in and just try to outshoot people and let them score on us at will. That's not going to work. We have to be able to get people off the field, have our defense control time of possession, and not rely on our offense controlling the time of possession. So I'm super excited that we're landing more Clemson guys because that has been their bread and butter.
Yeah, absolutely. And the defensive transformation isn't going to happen overnight, but I am very happy to have the guy who coached Clelin Ferrell, Austin Bryant, Dexter Lawrence, Christian Wilkins, all on that same D line in 2018 from Clemson. It's good to have him on your side in your defensive room. And this guy is incredible. And Jameson, what about the recruiting edge of this guy? I believe won 247's Recruiter of the Year as well. What do we have to look forward to there?
Yeah, he became their recruiting coordinator, I think, in 2020. And if we look at the 2020 class of who recruited on the defensive line, look no farther than the number one overall player in the nation, and Brian Breesy. That he's an absolute monster. And he didn't stop there when it turns down to defensive line. The number 7 player in the nation, Miles Murphy, he already got in that class in 2020. Got the number 34 player in the nation who was on the D line as well. Number 94 is also a D lineman. This is 4 top 100 players just on the D line that he recruited in that 2020 year. And, he has a history of it too. He started there at 2017 in Clemson. In his 2018 class, he recruited the number 3, number 14 overall player in the nation, who were both defensive linemen. Like, this guy obviously, hits it home with big time recruits. I really wish that Venables was a guy who'd be like, hey, let's take some of those Clemson players now. Brian Breesy, you want to come over to Oklahoma? That Clemson last year wasn't too good. But since, Brent Venables is too nice of a guy, which is my major knock on him, everything else is great. Recruiting for the future, that is exactly what you need moving to the SEC, a guy who can recruit some of the best defensive linemen in the country.
And not only that, but who can recruit the Southeast. Because let's be honest, Texas isn't enough. There are too many hands in that pot for you to just expect to go and get a bunch of Texas guys and win. Same with recruiting at home. You have to be able to recruit the entire Southeast. That means Alabama. That means Georgia. That means Florida. Mississippi. Less Mississippi, more the other ones. But, it matters to have a foothold there, and getting guys who know that area, who have connections in that region, in some of those South Florida, high schools, that's huge. So I'm pumped about it for sure. And I would also like to talk a little bit about a guy who isn't solid yet. This is just kind of rumored. On3, I believe, tweeted it out that we are strong. To use some Adrian Wojnarowski type of phrasing, are strongly looking at Jay Valet out of Alabama. This is his first year at Alabama. Last year he was at Texas. The former Wisconsin, I believe, safety. Jameson, what do you know about Jay Valet? And do you think that would be a pretty good hire?
Yes, I think this is the guy that we've been looking at since the beginning. People were talking about rumors of, our cornerbacks coach we can't hire right now because he's still dealing with playoffs. But right now is a major news leakage day, and I'm not surprised at all that somehow, some source is putting it on Twitter during a day where there's a lot of OU fans that are pretty nervous about the Caleb Williams news. So it's the good old, news dump to try to cover up some of the bad, throw up, some of the dirty clothes under the bed. But this is a guy like, even though was at Alabama, he's got Texas roots. He's from Texas. That's where he grew up. I think he's from Colleyville, if I remember right. And went to high school there, and has had big time, relationships with this Alabama recruiting class moving forward. We've seen, recently a pretty decent, footprint on the Texas state recruiting in terms of Alabama in these past years. And one of the, best, recruits in the nation, was a guy that was from Texas that he was really close with as well. So seems like he's a good guy that people really like. And I think that's, obviously a stellar hire just for clout standpoint too.
Yeah, Ty, snagging a guy from Saban, that has to feel kind of good, right?
Yeah, no, it's like sort of Jameson said with the clout, right? There's so much just name brand stuff involved, especially with recruiting when you're trying to dazzle these high school guys into coming into your program. Sometimes you truly can fake it until you make it. Look at, well, he hasn't made it, but Lane Kiffin's entire career he's made millions. So it helps when you have someone that can just say, I have this somewhere. It's like you could be the worst employee at, just off the top of my head, a company that people would find it. You could be the absolute worst employee at like SpaceX or Tesla or Facebook or Google or something that looks good on a resume, and then walk into your job interview to be a manager at a local Walmart, and you're going to wow them just with that or with the school you went to on your resume. So there is certainly a potential to have, and I think he's a great coach, and I think he's going to continue to be a great coach, and he's going to help us on the coaching side. But recruiting is so important nowadays. And I think it is really important that we get good people, but I hate to say it, there is a tremendous advantage to getting someone who is going to be a good coach and also has a resume that says Alabama Nick Saban coaching tree versus, and I have no one specific in mind, but say we're getting a new up and coming coach and they're coming from like Syracuse or something. That's less impressive on the the resume and less impressive to recruits, and won't have the same sort of, geographic footprint when it comes to recruiting. Obviously, Bama recruits nationwide, but it's very important. Having a staff that is predominantly OU retained, former Clemson or former Bama, is going to help us so much.
Yeah, I fully agree. And by the way, everyone watching live, expecting to hear some heavy talk about Caleb Williams and Dillon Gabriel. We talked about that for a good 30 minutes. You might have to go back and watch some of the replays because kind of squeezed that orange pretty good. But definitely check that out either on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. It's right there in your feed for you to listen to. So I would check that out if you want to hear some of our, kind of the meat of this conversation. Go back, give it a listen if you had not listened already. Well, anyways, let's move on to this day has been so crazy that somehow this got buried. Cruton Quarter and Jameson, pretty big happenings happened. So I'll hit your video.
David.
Yes.
What is this, David?
This is a
Cruton Corner with Jamison.
Everybody dancing.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, Javonte Barnes picking us over over USC is a huge deal over OU. Yeah, that'd be tough. I've changed my allegiance to USC, right?
He picked us over Ohio University.
We have a mole.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's been leaning OU for a long time now, and it was because of one guy, and that's DeMarco Murray. And DeMarco Murray staying at OU and has been a big vocal leader in this change, and is a guy that a lot of people have gotten behind. And he kept Gavin Sawchuk in the boat, and guess what? He just landed, a top 100 running back in Javonte Barnes. Our two best recruits in this class now are running backs, which is crazy. Assuming, Gentry Williams still hasn't signed, so not counting him yet. But the best ones that are signed and are already there are running backs. And that says a lot about DeMarco Murray as a recruiter and as his footprint in that zone of Las Vegas, because that's where Javonte Barnes is from, and helping him sell a running back class where you can come in with another very highly regarded running back, and we can have a 1-2 punch. Look what OU has done in the past as a 1-2 punch running back. Samaje Perine, Joe Mixon, same time, I'm sure gets brought up all of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And, even more recently, Trey Sermon and Kennedy Brooks were, I felt like, excellent together. There are a lot of, especially in today's, day and age with football, you have to kind of have a 1-2 punch. Especially because if you are wanting to get to the NFL, it's probably best you aren't an every down back. That is something that can really put a lot of tread on your tires. You only have a couple years, as a running back. I mean, Barry Sanders only ran for 10 years. It's unreal. So, I'm cool with the dual running back system. I'm all about it, and just a remarkable performance for DeMarco Murray. Give that man a raise, because he could have left, gone with Lincoln to USC, didn't, and has been really one of the most crucial figures outside of maybe Bob Stoops at keeping this thing together. So kudos on him. Just absolutely great performance.
Mm-hmm. I think another big thing that we have to talk about that's not necessarily recruiting for this cycle, but another name that we haven't hit yet is McCade Matauer from Cal, interior offensive lineman. Bill Beatenbow, I feel like he's watching tape, across the country pretty frequently on this transfer portal, because we saw it with Chris Murray, a couple years ago, and now we see it with McCade coming in as an interior offensive lineman guard prospect into a room where he's going to compete heavily. I don't know about y'all, but Chris Murray isn't this promised stud that we all thought he was going to be. He's shown a lot of deficiencies, and it seems that he kind of fizzles out at the end of the games. Looking at the Oregon game, our offensive line played great, but he was definitely, the weakest on that offensive line just by the eye test to me. McCade can come in and fight Chris Murray for that job and push him. While, at the same time, we have 2 offensive tackle spots on the outside to where the guys that were originally at guard, so say like a Bray Walker, could even think about moving out to a right tackle and giving it back a try to where that's how he was recruited as. So this adds a lot more flexibility. And, Bill Beatenbow loves his depth coming into the spring for offensive linemen because everything's on the board. You never know when a starter is going to be a true freshman like Anton Harrison was.
Ty?
For sure. Oh, yeah. Making sure I wasn't on mute. No, for sure. And I think that I don't have a lot more to add on Chris Murray, but like you said, depth is so important, especially as a line, because we kind of saw with name names, but you see how just relying on one person or having it sort of a key linchpin in your line is not a good move at the college level. And I'm just gonna let you guys take it. Where I was reading.
Yeah. I was sending
no
a
worries,
text because I realized how big of a bonehead is to not even mention that Marquise Hayes is gone. A guy that was on the line of was he going to stay, was he going to go? Going to the draft. Marquise Hayes gone, so there's an opening at left guard to where Chris Murray could also start. But at the same time, I want competition at all guard spots right now because Chris Murray just didn't stun me as an option.
Agreed. I'm with you. Anyways, let's move on to something. This is what we were planning on talking about the whole time, but Caleb Williams and Dillon Gabriel and Brent Venables and his staff, they had different ideas. So look, let's I still have the preview up. Let's talk about the Alamo Bowl, kind of recap it a little bit, and. What a moment. What a game. This was honestly one of the more enjoyable bowl experiences I've ever watched with OU. It was truly a moment. Bob Stoops coming back, succeeding, and passing the visor off to Brent Venables. Just all a remarkable thing. I did a little bit of a, let's just say, not thorough post-game show after it, but I want to get some of y'all's thoughts on it. And Lord knows I've already said too much about that game, but Jameson, your thoughts on that night?
Overall, I felt comfortable the whole game. In terms of we talked about it. It's like playing with house money. If we win, awesome. If we lose, we have excuses. But at the same time, even though Oregon was kind of Travis Dye was running us and our corners were getting roasted, I felt great the whole game that we just had it, and I was not worried at all. And you're not supposed to feel like that playing, in Oregon in the Alamo Bowl in a top 25 matchup. That felt great. But there is a lot of things, if you break down the game and if you take like certain things from it, that obviously, if you want to play negative Nancy, are concerning. But overall, a lot more positive than negative. And I think my favorite thing, just to say it before I pop off to Ty, offensive line looked great.
Yeah, so I want to say first and foremost, this was almost like a limited edition, one-off special edition, game, sort of like a just a marquee exhibition matchup. I can't even, there's so many words you can come up with, but this is like we had a Hall of Fame coaching, like an already inducted Hall of Fame coaching for one of the teams. I couldn't even tell you who's coaching for the other team. A ton of opt-outs or injuries or positive COVID tests on both sides. What we saw was two teams that we're never going to see again. This OU team that played in the Alamo Bowl was fundamentally not the OU team that we saw all year, for the most part. And this Oregon team that we saw playing wasn't really a representation of Oregon's team all year, not to make an excuse for them, but we also didn't see Oregon's team next year, and we also didn't see OU's team by any stretch of the imagination for next year. So this was such a weird matchup where we had these two just once-in-a-lifetime teams come together. I do want to say I'm super glad that we saw them play, and then as I hand it off to Bobby and we dive deeper into it, I have to say I feel like most people agree with me. It's a less nuanced take, but the moment of the game by far was Drake Stoops getting a touchdown, running over the sideline, and getting that hug with Bob Stoops. It was such a treat to see one last ride with Bob Stoops on the OU sideline and coaching. That was amazing. And I have some more talking points, but I'll let Bobby get his general intro in.
Yeah, no, it was such a feel-good moment, and it's weird looking back on it now, given what has happened today with, just getting right back on the roller coaster, because it feels like 50 years away, even though it's like 5 days away or ago. So it's kind of frustrating that we're now drugged back into the madness, but that's just how it is as an OU fan. But in terms of a game, I'm with Ty. It feels like a special one-off, a one-shot sort of special event that is just truly something to be cherished, and it's definitely one that we'll remember for a long time, for sure.
Yeah, that whole Drake Stoops touchdown, watching on my television, it was, I don't know if it was like this on y'all's, but the camera angle made it look like, when there was the setup, that Drake Stoops was off by himself on the left, and I couldn't see that he was in the slot, but I couldn't see the 2 wideouts that were out there, and I was like, oh my God, we're running a 1 wide receiver set with Drake Stoops, and then I see him veer out, and they throw a fade to him. I go, oh my God, we just put Drake Stoops as a 1 wide receiver, and we faded him, and he caught it, but I didn't see the 2 outside wide receivers cut in. But still, if you're fading Drake Stoops, who's, okay, come on, what is he listed at, 5'10", 5'9", no, probably 5'7", 5'8", if we're talking real here. And he just goes up and gets it. Like, that's just awesome. Ty's talked about it the whole year. This guy's just surefire.
He's the best receiver on our. He's the most consistent receiver on our. I cannot name another receiver that has had at least 2 catches in every single game.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're not wrong. He was a safety blanket for Caleb Williams and Spencer Rattler all season long, and he deserves his props. He deserves his flowers, and he was a hell of a player for us, and has been great. Pretty much ever since he stepped onto campus. So I loved watching Drake do that.
He first stepped onto campus like hours
as a
after
child.
He was born. Yeah,
that's true.
Pretty sure he was on Owen Field within a week of his birth, and I'm not joking at all.
There's that great picture of Drake and Isaac like as babies, like in '98, or like right, or probably more like '99. Just right after Stoops got there. It's just gold. But
Oregon should definitely petition for recruiting violations against OU, just on a technicality.
Yeah, he was a walk-on.
He was a walk-on. We're fine. We didn't even give him a Scully until Lincoln did. But yeah, no, it was a fun game. I don't think you can glean too much from it because Oregon was missing a lot of players, and obviously our team might look very different, especially with today's news with Caleb and everything. But overall, good times. I enjoyed it. Jameson, any final thoughts on it before we just kind of wrap this whole thing up?
Yeah, not getting a full really analysis of this game because a lot of it really doesn't mean anything moving forward because a lot of the players that played well leaving for the draft or leaving for transfer portal. Jalil Farouk looked great, but if Caleb's gone, I bet you Jalil Farouk's gone. So, he had that, burst to his catch where whenever he was moving with the football, he looked a lot faster than the D-backs. And, man, that sucks if we were to lose a guy like him too. Caleb Williams leaving isn't just Caleb Williams. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Mario Williams leave too. Like this is an avalanche move, just like the Lincoln Riley thing, guys.
Speaking of Williams, how about that damn the helmet catch?
Yeah,
ridiculous. I'm still upset about that. But Ty, your final thoughts?
I have one final thought on the Alamo Bowl. One thing that could potentially be indicative of the future of OU. Maybe I made the take a year too early. Maybe I was before my time. Kenny Brooks had a game, 3 touchdowns, like 15 carries, was averaging, what was it? Yeah, he averaged 10 yards per carry. That's insane. Okay. But right after him in number of carries, I told you in the preseason, Marcus Major from Oklahoma City, probably not going to go anywhere else because academically he doesn't qualify for literally any other school. Most of the season didn't even academically qualify to play at OU.
There goes our Marcus Major NIL deal.
Which is hard. Like you gotta,
probably.
I know because I've been in that boat too. You gotta try to be academically not in favor at OU. It takes serious commitment. But yeah, Marcus Major, average 5 yards per carry, not amazing. Everybody else, Eric Gray and Brooks were averaging over 10. But
Oregon could not guard anything on the run defense. But how about your boy, Eric Gray? Seriously, like getting the
Stoops
first
liked
drive
him.
snaps.
Yeah, he gave him some good carries. But I just want to say, in the final game of the postseason, my cold take was sort of turned to a lukewarm take and saying that Marcus Major was someone to watch. Maybe next year because he has eligibility. So I just wanted to point that out. He is a sophomore now, so he will not be going anywhere. Doesn't have the resume to go to the NFL for sure. And he's not going to be going anywhere else because you have to go to class to do that. So
running back room's looking like the best, in terms of returning, even though we lose Kennedy Brooks, Eric Gray, Marcus Major, and then getting Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk. The quarterback position, obviously there's some turmoil. We're losing 3 offensive linemen. Wide receiver transfer portal could hit us really hard. It already kind of has with Caleb Williams news. And the defensive line obviously hit hard. Brian Asamoah, the linebackers, and then the cornerbacks. Do we even need to talk about cornerbacks? I think we'd be remiss not to even bring it up before we end this podcast, Bobby. Who should start at cornerback next season, and why is it not DJ Graham?
That's tough. Hey, maybe DJ Graham gets coached up. That's the only
thing I can see.
He could be a wide receiver. All I know is he just got burnt over and over and over again, and it was really hard to watch. I'm getting pretty close to done on the DJ Graham experiment, but through Venables, all things are possible. So
it was instinct. If you watch the replays, this dude was just giving up on the route. Like he's thinking like I'm good, and the guy would just zoom past him. It wasn't like Zach Sanchez biting, oh man, I'm like biting, I want to get this interception. This dude was just like losing the defender and didn't even know where it went. Like his technique was obvious that he had been coached by a linebacker coach this whole season. The guy had none. Came into this, out of high school as an athlete and got big time play early as a freshman, but he had never been coached up to actually be a legitimate cornerback. And an athlete can make you have big time plays and have the number 2 overall college football play of the year in the Texas interception. But what it doesn't get you, athleticism, is how to move your hip right and turning to the ball and staying with your receiver and being a cornerback and the right footwork to do it. And he was not taught that at all, and you could absolutely see it. You saw it this whole year. DJ Graham had many moments like this, but it was showcased because how many times he did it, and being a bowl game, obviously, all eyes are on you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was a tough look for a guy for sure. And again, like you said, the instincts just aren't there. He is a great athlete, was recruited as an athlete, but there are just some things that you need to have that feeling. And if you don't have that feeling, then I don't know what to tell you. I will say I'm excited about more Key Lawrence, more Justin Broyles. I thought Broyles was really good. So there are options, but DJ Graham, I don't know. He is a good enough athlete that you can find a place for him, but cornerback probably not going to be it. And to be fair, he doesn't have Roy Manning coaching him up anymore, so that's already a massive plus.
He'll still be cornerback, but I'm just a little bit worried about him moving forward. But you never know. Once you get an actual legitimate cornerbacks coach who just got done coaching at Alabama, maybe we can fix a little bit things here.
Can we talk about how Roy Manning essentially just was Clark Stroud, but as a coach? All he did was he did little hype videos, and that was it. Where's the difference between him and Clark Stroud?
Nothing.
Nothing.
No, the Clark Stroud might be goofier, I guess. A little bit weirder.
Roy's were way less cringy, but that's like a low bar. You can like stumble over that bar.
I had like taken out like the memories of Clark Stroud's goofy ass singing in that car every single morning, and now you just brought it all back. Now it's like very glad he's gone. Very glad he's gone. It was just goofy. That's just cringe content.
It was some was it cringe consumerism, Ty?
Maybe. It depends on if he made money. I do want to say real quick, we had a YouTube comment in response to Clint on YouTube. I've been supporting Marcus Major all year, and I've been getting made fun of for it because at the start of the season, I declared that he was going to be our main running back. That didn't pan out, so I have a personal sort of grievance in that I honestly believe he could have been, and very well maybe next year, and I'm going to get burned for this too, but he burned me on I stepped up to the plate to support him, and then he burned me by just not going to class or whatever. So, yeah. And
look, not going to class or, not... let's be honest. It's not going to class. That is what burns you.
You
in college.
Have to not at OU specifically. If you just are present most of the time, you will pass.
I know people who have failed out of racquetball. Like the only way to fail out of racquetball is to just not show up. And it happens. Sometimes you take a tumble and accidentally have to withdraw from a class that was super easy. Shout out to online philosophy. I know the pain, but it happens. So anyway, I have a degree. We're fine. But all right, let's kind of wrap this thing up. Any final thoughts, Jameson?
No, I think that everyone, that it came into the chat right now recently that wants to hear, live reactions and what we think about the Caleb Williams and Dillon Gabriel news, just hit rewind from live and just watch those. And you can put it on 1.5 speed too and get through it faster. If not, if you're a podcast person, put it on your phone on the way to work tomorrow. I think it's, some good stuff that we said, and there's a lot of interesting, propositions that we brought up. But all in all, I want to hammer back. I understand we talked about bowl recap last, but I want to, round back to the main point of Caleb Williams leaving is 99% sure in my brain. And I know a lot of people are keeping doors open. But once this Dillon Gabriel news dropped, I don't see any avenue where an offensive coordinator would give Dillon Gabriel a job offer, essentially, to come to a place that he wouldn't be the starter at for the next 2 years when he has 3 years of eligibility. That's not how business works. So Caleb Williams leaving, I'll say that now, is going to have, monumental effect when it comes down to the wide receiver room around him. There are going to be people that leave because Caleb Williams is leaving because he was a leader of this team and people gravitated to him. You saw how much people gravitated to him in high school and how well he did recruiting other people. Guess what happens when you're the head quarterback on one of the best, programs in college football in Oklahoma? People gravitate to you. Whenever you lose your leader, people are broken. So there's a lot going on here.
Absolutely. And, I'm on the opposite end. I mainly because of that gamble line that Gabriel said that it doesn't seem like it was an automatic because or maybe it was an automatic because, frankly, we've seen, players say, I've been doubted it ever since I was, like 5, yes, and they've been a 5-star, and they're a 5-star number one option, all
Bryce
the way
Young.
through. Bryce Young. So, maybe it actually wasn't that much of a gamble. Maybe he's afraid of Ralph Rucker. Who knows? But we'll see. Definitely, look. This live's about to end. Just go right on back. Wait for it a couple seconds to get going, or just even better, subscribe to us on wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple
and YouTube.
Podcast, Stitcher, and of course on YouTube as well. Ty, final thoughts?
Yeah, it just came to me when you were talking about that. Maybe his gambling statement. It's about taking a gamble. Norman is out of Orlando and then Los Angeles, the only place where there's casinos. So maybe he just likes to gamble and is coming to OU because of no free sponsorships. But the fact that we have casinos here. So there is that possibility. But I do want to say, in all seriousness, the state of OU football is good. We're going to be okay. We are not at the point going forward. We're building a true championship caliber team, or a team that should be a true championship caliber team. We're not building a team of scrappy underdogs that is relying on a very chippy Heisman winner to try to punch up and maybe get us in the championship game and rely on some Sooner magic to win, right? We are building a team. We've moved past the era of, it was one of my favorite OU team of all time, actually, the 2017 team with Baker, right? We're not relying on that methodology anymore, right? We're not taking, and Baker's probably my favorite OU player of all time. But we're not relying on chippy guys to sort of punch up and have some magic and some miracles and get us in the playoff, and then we'll see what happens. We're building a team that should and has the potential to, with the coaching staff and the players that they're going to bring in, to do what we want, set the pace of the game, and be a true, absolute favorite contender against teams like Bama. And I'm not even going to knock on wood or say that I'm going to jinx it or whatever, because at Clemson, the Brent Venables defense, with our D-line coach that we've just got, and the potential for recruiting with the move to the SEC and the names that we have on the coaching staff, not just because of their names, but because of their performance, we're building a team that is able to take us to the next layer, right? And I know we've lost. I 100% I agree with Jameson. We've lost Caleb Williams. I think he's gone. I think it was probably a done deal when Lincoln Riley left, and he just was a good man about it and played out the rest of the season. We lost our coach. We lost our DC. We didn't have an OC, which I've complained about forever. Now we do. We're building a solid team that doesn't have to rely on tricks and luck and magic to win. We're building a team that should just be able to flat out go out there and win at any level. And I think that no one should be concerned, regardless of who goes in, who comes out. This is Oklahoma football, and we invented being champions, like the King said, Barry Switzer, and we're going to get back to the Switzer level soon. Bama is going to continue to be good with Saban. They might be our Miami, if we're using Switzer analogies, but Switzer still won a lot of championships back then, and we're going to win more championships in the future.
I'm with you. I think we're, honestly, I think if you want to take away a lot of things today, the additions to the defensive staff are just as big as Caleb leaving. And in fact, probably bigger if we're talking long-term. Building a foundation, building something that, has substance, legitimacy, that is more than just like flash and dash and, Lamborghinis in the end zone. Which, here's the thing. You need a couple Lamborghinis in the end zone, but none of that matters if you don't have a defense that can square up against SEC competition, the competition you meet in the playoff. Without that, you're just going to lose. You're going to bust. You're going to bust out like they have every single year, and we'll see how that goes. But you have to have the toughness with that energy on offense. Overall, I do want to end this by saying, don't tweet. Don't tweet at Caleb Williams. Please, guys, don't do that. Apparently, some of you, some people out there apparently, were tweeting, Gabriel, or Brownlow Dindy.
Almost did it.
What? Gabriel
I thought you were going to say Gabriel Deck.
No, they're tweeting at Dindy, some death threats. They're still kids. They're trying to do what's best for them. So don't be mean to them. Maybe if you want to talk bad about them online in general spaces, if you're in the comments, kind of trashing on them, go for that. Yeah, that's right. Caleb Williams ain't watching this damn show anyways, or shouldn't. If he does, hey, you're welcome on the pod. But I don't think we should trash him. He's not a Lincoln Riley level snake. He was promised to 4 years of Lincoln. And Lincoln dashed after one. Honestly, probably half year, not even a full year. But I don't blame him for wanting to look at his options. And look, I'm tired of constantly feeling bad about players or calling them snakes and having all of these great moments ruined because of all this. If Caleb leaves, he leaves. But you know what? That Texas game, that is always in our hearts. That is always there for us. And he, as far as I'm concerned, he's a part of the Sooner family. Much like all of us, he was dealt a crap hand when Lincoln left. And you know, if he wants to shop around and look at his options, go for it. That is the nature we're in, and that is the smart thing to do. It might not be the thing that you want him to do, and it might not be the thing that OU fans want him to do. But you know, frankly, for the kid, that's totally fair beyond me, or in my opinion. So, you know, if we talked a lot earlier about restrictions on the portal, I would say that coaching changes, as much as anything, are a good reason to try to portal or take a look at things. Mm-hmm. I'm not mad at the guy, and as much as I would love to, you know, add fuel to the fire and be a homer here, I'm just being honest. You know, that it's a tough situation for all of us. So if he wants to be here, he'll be here. If he doesn't, well, good luck.
Completely agree. We'll be in Caleb Williams' comments whenever he announces his transfer to Miami. So congratulations.
Nat. I'm kidding. I mean, honestly, if you go to Miami, good luck, man. Try to revive that mess of a program. But anyways, for me, Jameson and Ty, this has been the Schooner Pod. Thank you all so much for watching or listening. If you were watching live and want to catch this later, like we said, we are available everywhere you get your podcast: Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it, we are there. And hey, if you're on one of those with reviews, if you like it, make sure to stop by and give us a 5-star. We always like that. So, yeah, just had to shill out for that. But you know, you do what you can do around here in these trying times, folks. And boy, are they trying times. So, anyways, we will be with you all off season long. As this gets crazier, less crazy, who knows? This may never end. We may never finally get rest. But I had a good holiday. It was good to get a break. But we are right back at it. So, for me, Jameson and Ty, this has been the Schooner Pod. We will see you next time, whatever that may be. Have a good one. Boomer Sooner. Keep the faith. And for God's sake, don't tweet at Caleb Williams.